Okay, next up we have Tibetan numerals. This is one of my favorites. It's really like every linguistics teacher's favorite little problem set. It's very neat, very abstract, totally compositional. So we're going to make numbers in Tibetan by joining together morphemes for other numbers. And this is going to be more regular and productive than it is in a language like English, where, you know, a number like 15 clearly has something to do with 5 and 10, but there's tons of historically frozen vowel differences and other weird stuff going on in those words. You wouldn't try to derive the contemporary English word 15 from the underlying forms for 5 and 10 and somehow make 510 come out to 15. This is sort of a frozen picture of what historical phonology might have looked like in English. In Tibetan, it's much more transparent and compositional in this way. So what's going on here? Well, we have a bunch of simple numerals like 10, ju, 4, shi, and 5, na. And if we want to make teen words, it looks like first we use the 10 morpheme, that kind of makes sense, and then we add the morphemes for the other numerals. So if you want to make 14, it will be 10 plus 4, and that should be ju, shi, except this extra consonant pops up in here. It's jub, shi. So what's going on here? 3 possibilities. Possibility 1, this is a special morpheme that pops up when you're creating a teen word. That can't be right because it doesn't pop up in 15. So ju, na surfaces as ju, na. No special ba morpheme. And in the other example here, which is 19, which should be ju plus gu, you do get a consonant popping up here, but it's a different consonant. It's ra. So this can't be the answer. This can't be some sort of a morpheme that pops up here. Other possibility, maybe this is actually belonging to the 10 word, but it deletes at the end of a word, just like we just saw in Samoan. So the underlying representation here would be jub, and you would do the segmentation like this, but when you're at the end of a word, this consonant deletes. Problem? Again, it doesn't pop up here. Right? So if it's part of the underlying representation of 10, then why would it delete before this consonant while surfacing before this one? You could try to write a rule that would do it, but then there's another problem, which is, again, the 19 form. There's a different consonant that shows up here. It's or ra, possibly. And so you're presumably not going to be able to predict that. It's unpredictable. So it can't be part of the same morpheme here that sometimes surfaces as ba, sometimes as ra, and sometimes as 0. That would be pretty weird. Last possibility, what if it's part of the following morpheme? Ju, bishi. And here, if that was right, you'd have to say that in Tibetan, a consonant deletes in the context of a preceding word boundary, that is at the beginning of a word, when it's before another consonant or something like that. Do we see any words in Tibetan that begin with 2 consonants? No, assuming that this ja is a single consonant, it's an affricate, right? We don't see any sequences of 2 consonants at the beginning of a word, so this is a plausible rule. We just saw that all the other possibilities didn't seem to work here. So what if bishi is becoming shi when it's not preceded by another morpheme? What would then be the difference between nga and shi? Well, it only emerges when you put them after another morpheme. It looks like nga doesn't have any preceding consonants in its underlying representation. It's just na, and it doesn't alternate. But shi does have a preceding consonant that only surfaces in this context and not this one. So we get shi, bishi. How would that work for 9? Well, we get gu over here, but we get another one of these popping up kinds of consonants here. jurgu. So again, we'd have to say that this r consonant is actually part of the following morpheme, but it deletes in this context because you can't have a consonant cluster at the beginning of a word in Tibetan. So the underlying representations here are nga, this one doesn't alternate, but ergu and bishi. What is the last column showing us? Here we're getting, well, jugjig is 10 plus 1, but then we're getting multiples of 10, and where the teen numbers had first 10, then the numerals 4, 5, and 9, these multiples of 10 are going to have the numeral 4, 5, and 9 first, followed by the numeral for 10. And again, we're getting this issue with a consonant that pops up here, right? So we expect if the word begins with bashi, that ba is going to get deleted. We already know that from over here. So if you join together this and this, you would expect shiju. But here, we're getting a ba popping up again. Same thing is happening with gu plus ju. We're getting gu baju. And with nga followed by ju, we're getting nga baju. So it looks like not only these numerals, the 4 and 5 numerals, the 4 and 9 numerals, but also the 10 numeral has an underlying consonant cluster at its left edge, in this case baju, that only surfaces following a vowel and otherwise deletes if it's at the beginning of a word. So this rule applies to all these morphemes. This one is abstract, again, because the isolation forms for these words are really quite different from what we think the underlying representations actually are. That's a pretty tricky problem.